and you are on YouTube and caught up.
Thank you so much. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the June 9th school board meeting of the West Sonoma County Union High School District. Uh-oh. My screen. Oh, Lord. Okay, I'll get there. I guess my agenda just disappeared on me.
Just drop the agenda in the chat.
Thank you. I got it here. It just, I don't know what happened. Okay, I got it back now. Thanks. Okay, so welcome back to our meeting. We're reconvening to open session, and we will begin with the Pledge of Allegiance, as we always do. If you have a flag in your room or the space you're in, please find it. And if not, turn your head to the right, and we will begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. And then can I get approval of the agenda? Tony, yeah?
Yes, we need to change the order of a couple things. We have guests tonight, and okay. I want to be able to move their items forward in the agenda. So if we could move A, 5, and 6, and C4 ahead in the agenda before education services items, that will take care of our visitors tonight.
Okay, so we'll move those. And with the movement of those, can I get a motion to approve the amended agenda?
I move that we approve the amended agenda.
Thank you, Angie. A second, please.
I second.
Thank you, Lori. Okay, any discussion further? All right. With that, we will do roll call vote. Angie Lewis.
Aye.
Lori Fadave.
Aye.
Julie Aiello.
Aye.
Jeannie Fernandez, aye. Okay, thank you very much. And then with that, we will do input from the public regarding items not on the open session agenda. If you wish to speak, now would be your, for anything that's not on our agenda, now is the opportunity for you to raise your hand, and the board will recognize you, and Jenny can let you into the room.
Have one hand raised right now.
Okay. We'll give it just a few seconds longer to see if we get other folks that want to speak. Okay.
Full 3 minutes.
Looks like we've got Tara Del Drago, and yes, I think we can go ahead and allow her 3 minutes.
Perfect. Tara, you have the floor.
Hi, I would like to once again just speak on behalf of all of West County and beseech all of you to halt the consolidation of the high school for this upcoming year and to focus on all the other ideas that were presented to you to be able to halt that and to hold off and save our kids and our schools. Again, a few times now, it has been asked of you board members to drive the routes of these kids that have to come from Fort Ross and everything, and given them an additional 40 miles a week for them and or their parents to have to drive them to Annalee, given the cost of gas, the congestion that it's going to cause in Sebastopol and all these streets is a little ridiculous. So just again, asking you to take into consideration that we have a huge number out here that is fighting to keep our school, keep the businesses going in our town. And again, just reminding you that not only are you just moving a school over with students to Annalee, you are still keeping all 3 schools open. So you're essentially really not saving any money. You are still paying for those 3 facilities. You are still paying for more teachers. Those other classes are still being held open. And the number that you're adding to Annalee with the number of students is ridiculous. And now Annalee alumni have now stood with us and are fighting too to not only recall the board members, but fighting this consolidation because they also want to keep these schools all open and to have all of our students get to keep their schools. So if all 3 schools are staying open already, stop the consolidation, slow it down, do your due diligence as a board that you should be doing and listening to every single thing happening with the public that is asking you. We want to all work together. We want a cohesive school across the board for every single student in this entire county. It is imperative and not fair to these kids out in Fort Ross, Cazadero, all of West County, that we have to do all this additional driving, money, miles, let alone the emotional stuff that this is doing to the kids. So please reconsider the consolidation and do what's right for all of our kids. Thank you.
Looks like you have one more hand raised. Did you want me to?
I think we can go ahead and take that. But before I do that, I'm really sorry, Mariana, I forgot to introduce you. So go ahead, Mariana.
He's already in
Hola.
the rotation channel.
No, I'm here. I'm
Oh,
here.
you are?
Ya, hola, buenas noches a todos los que quieran escuchar esto en español. Disculpen la demora, pero elijan la burbuja que diga español y van a poder escuchar la traducción simultánea. Gracias. Yeah, send me the link, Ginny, because I didn't see that
Hold on.
for the interpreter.
Channel. Wait, no.
Thank you, Mariana.
Sorry.
No, it's
You're welcome.
Mariana, are you still here? I'm having a
Yeah.
time. It's not letting me.
You meant to log out the
You,
meeting
you
and
have
then
to log out and log back in. For some reason, you're not on the right link. So let me see if I can add you really quick. Hold on.
Let me see. Hola, ¿me escuchan?
No. It says that you haven't joined. Did you use the link we always use?
Yes, I did. Let me log out and come back because it might be something like that.
Thank you.
okay. While she's doing that, I do believe we have another speaker.
We do. Barbara, go ahead and you have the floor. Barbara, can you hear us?
Yeah. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Hi. I just wanted to again ask you about stopping the consolidation in view of that the community is not all on board with it. And it's something that should be done with agreement. So I'm asking you again, because you're our representatives, and I hope that you'll consider that these schools are really important to people. And it's not only the people who live in Cazadero who are going to miss El Molino, it's the people who live right next to it. Anyway, I don't want to attack any of you personally. It's just that this is not acceptable. I can't see how it's going to be positive for our communities. So I really hope that you will consider, again, the other alternatives. Now, I've been told that there was no other alternative. This is the only way to make the budget. But obviously, some people voted against this. The Superintendent's Budget Committee was divided as well. So it seems like there are some other alternatives. and letting these students keep their school may be more important to them than certain programs. So I hope that you really will consider this. Thank you. I think that's all I have to say.
Thank you.
¿Me escuchan? Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah, we can still hear you.
Okay, so I'm in the wrong channel. Sorry. I don't know.
Yeah, it's saying you're not joined. I'm going to send you a whole new link. Hold on. Sorry. Technical.
All right. Okay, with that, we're going to move forward with our consent calendar. Can I get a motion for the consent calendar, please?
So I so move.
Thank you, Lori. A second, please.
I'll second.
Thank you, Julie. Okay, is there any comment from the public on these items? Doesn't look like it. And is there any discussion from the board on these items? Okay, with that, we will do roll call vote. Lori Fadave,
Aye.
Angie Lewis,
Aye.
Julie Aiello,
Aye.
Jeannie Fernandez, aye. Thank you. Oops. Oh, this thing is so touchy tonight. Okay. All right. So next would be action taken on closed session. Angie?
There was no action taken.
Thank you. And now we will move to reports. We first have association reports. Do we have someone from CTA and or CSEA that would like to give a report?
No hands are raised.
Okay. Next would be board member reports. Lori, do you have a report?
I attended the Anley Awards Assembly. I'm very happy I was invited to do so. And it was really wonderful to see the students and some of the staff who were present. It was a very enjoyable and empowering event. As it always is, whenever you see students who are being honored for their hard work and their particularly over the last year with having to go through their education online with a great deal of difficulty. It was really amazing to see how very, very well the students did. And I know that they're going to do fantastically as they head out into their futures. So congratulations to all graduates throughout all the schools at West County.
Thank you, Lori. Julie, a report?
No, I don't have anything to report tonight.
Okay, great. Angie?
I've got a few things. I got to attend the El Molino Award ceremony, and it was really cool to, like Lori shared, to see the kids be honored. It was really awesome to hear the community scholarships and kind of the history behind them. My son was there too, so that was exciting, but I also got to present some of the awards. So it's a totally different perspective than I ever recalled as a parent. So that was a really cool experience. I also attended Laguna's graduation and got to see quite a few familiar faces and see they also did their award ceremony at the graduation, which was really cool. So we got to see them get those awards and kind of share that experience with them. Let's see, I'm looking through my notes here. I'm sure most of you have read through the paper that the graduating class, I believe they had was roughly around 60 students, which was 3 times what they had the year before. So congrats to Laguna for all of their success, to Allie and the staff. And then there was a bit of a conflict between Annalie and Elmo's graduation. I had a senior graduating, so I went to the El Molino graduation. And again, it was just a really sweet ceremony honoring these graduates, and hearing the students give their speeches and perspectives as they go off into their lives was a really inspiring and awesome. I have a timer. I can't wait till we're in person again. I'm not in the house. Holy cow. So the staff, I just thought that with all of the things that I went to, all of the staff went above and beyond to honor these students. And, oh my gosh. I'm so sorry. My son's coming home and my dogs apparently don't recognize my son. Sorry, and I'm sweating because I'm running everywhere. So I just thought the staff did an amazing job recognizing these students, especially after this year. Congrats to all the graduates for all the perseverance and resilience they've demonstrated, and the staff too. I think that everyone's done a great job. I heard the Annalie graduation was lovely too from a lot of parents, so well done to everyone.
Thank you, Angie. Yeah, I, along with Lori and Kelly, attended the Annalie Awards and was invited to present an award. And that was really, really lovely. And it's always such an honor to do so. And just seeing people was really phenomenal because we just haven't done that, especially school-related people. So that was really, really great. And then I attended the Laguna graduation and with Angie and Tony on Thursday morning. And I just wanted to take a quick second because I wanted everybody else to hear what it is that I shared with the class of 2021 on behalf of Kelly, since Kelly couldn't be there. So this is some worldly advice I gave them from my favorite author, Dr. Seuss. Today is your day. You're off to great places. You're off and away. Your mountain is waiting, so get on your way. Today you are you, and that is truer than true. There is no one alive that is youer than you. Step with great care and with tact, and remember that life is a balancing act. You'll be on your way up. You'll be seeing great sights. You'll join the high flyers, and you will soar to high heights. You have brains in your head and feet in your shoes. You can steer yourself in any direction you choose. Be who you are and say what you feel. Those that mind don't matter, and those who matter don't mind. And will you succeed? Yes, you will indeed. 99.75% guaranteed. So he is my absolute favorite author. I actually used him for my senior project when I went to Sonoma State, and because he just has such great words of wisdom. Anyway, I also attended then that evening the Annalie graduation with Kelly, and it was mighty warm, and we survived, thank goodness for some sunscreen and plenty of water. And we each I wore a visor and she wore a hat because we were staring right into the sunshine. So it was really, really pretty warm. But they had 280 some odd graduates graduate, and it was just quite the honor to be there and just witness such greatness. There's a lot of great kids and just so excited for them and their futures. They've had a heck of a journey getting there, and I was just really proud to be able to represent. So with that, we will move on to the superintendent's report. Tony?
Yeah. Hi, everyone. You guys have talked about my first order of business, was to talk about graduations. I did get to attend Laguna's, and as Jeannie and Angie had mentioned, And it was an amazing ceremony, 62 graduates. It was very exciting. And then I got to attend El Molino's graduation, sit out on that hot field. It was very hot, but it was an enjoyable ceremony. It was beautiful. It was nice to actually be in person versus what we did last year. So it is too bad that our ceremonies had overlapping times, so we couldn't all be at all three of them. But it was nice to be able to honor those graduates. So that was very enjoyable. The only other update I have is in the area of the renaming. The uniforms have been ordered for the football teams. That happened this past week. Actually, I think it might have happened last week. And the uniforms are gray and white, and there's a common logo that has West County and will just display both schools' colors. So that was very exciting that we were able to do that. And we're in the process of ordering or preparing to order the other uniforms for the fall sports. In addition, we met with the bandwagon boosters and Casey Jones, and have made decisions about what those uniforms can look like for a lower cost initially until we make the final decision about the renaming. Transportation, we've finalized the transportation plans with our transportation JPA, and we will be able to provide the transportation we had mentioned previously. There will be the extension of the routes to the river area, to Cazadero, Bodega Bay, and to there's the other one that in Guerneville, all the way to Guerneville. So all of those routes will be extended, the ones that had previously been reduced. So those will be continuing. They will go to El Molino. We will be able to pick up students at El Molino and transport them to Annalee, and then back to El Molino, and then all the way back out to the river area. There'll also be shuttles that will take students from Annalee to El Molino, and then from El Molino back to Annalee at the end for those last periods of the day. So we have confirmed those transportation routes. In addition, we have begun the move. Teachers are packing or finishing packing, and those moves have begun. Summer school starts on Monday, so the move plans have started, with the final moves being made the first weeks in July. So we are on schedule and in process for the movement of teachers onto one campus. And that's my report for tonight.
Thank you very much. Okay, so we're going to move on to our discussion and action items. And as we had stated, we are going to move item 5, am I right, 5C, Tony? With Jonathan Salt. We're going to move Jonathan up to this point in the agenda, and then we will meet with our school and college legal services.
Right. So we're going to we're moving both which are the two, A5 and A6.
Right.
So the first one is A5.
A5. Let me find A5 then. Okay, so A5 is a public hearing with regards to the submission of a general waiver request to be approved by the State Board of Education concerning the district's transition to a by-trustee election system. So this is just a public hearing, so we want to open the public hearing, correct?
Mm-hmm. Yes. Then, Jonathan, do we want to say anything prior to the public hearing?
Yes. Good evening, members of the board, Beth, and members of the community. I'm Jonathan Salt with Fagan, Friedman, Fullfrost. Just wanted to kind of set the scene for the two items tonight. The first is a public hearing. The second is a resolution authorizing the district to apply for a waiver. To give some more background on what this actually is, as you all know, a few months ago, the board took action to start the process to transition from at-large to by-trustee area elections. But the census hasn't been released yet, so there's really not much to do until this fall when it's expected to be released in September. At that time, the district's going to hold all these public hearings about map options and ultimately adopt one of those map options and submit it to the county for approval. After the county approves of the district's transition and map option, the county's approval, as it's currently written in the law, is an order of election to put the question to the voters of, do we even want to change the election system to begin with, which the board's already decided it wants to do, and by then the county would have already approved of it. So in order to apply to get that section waived so that the county's approval is the last stop for the district must hold a public hearing about this issue and consult with bargaining units, which I understand has taken place already, consult with other district stakeholders such as ELAC, the Lcap Committee, et cetera, all of which I understand has happened. So the state is required to grant a waiver like this if all of those steps have been followed. So the public hearing is the last step there. These are non-controversial waivers. They pass them 15 at a time on their consent agenda. Every district that transitions to trustee area elections applies for this waiver because it ensures that the new election system can be in place in time for your next election in November 2022. So this is the public hearing. If anyone has any concerns or thoughts about applying for the waiver, the next item will be the board potentially authorizing staff to actually apply for that waiver, which takes about 4 months to get word on, but about 10 minutes to actually apply. And so with that, I'm happy to answer questions, or we can open the public hearing, and I'll be here to help as I can.
Okay, so with that, we'll go ahead and open the public hearing. And if there's anyone that wishes to speak on this item with regards to a general waiver request to the State Board of Education, now would be your opportunity to speak. So please raise your hand and the board will acknowledge you, and Jenny will let you into the room. I'll leave this open for a little bit of time so that we can be sure we don't miss somebody that wants to speak.
No hands as of right now.
Okay, with that, I'm going to go ahead and close the public hearing. It's not to say that you still can't speak, because after we open up the next item, number 6, there's still another opportunity to speak on this. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and open excuse me, not open up, but we'll move to item number 6, consideration of approval of the resolution number 24, 2020-2021, authoring the submission of a general waiver request to be approved by the State Board of Education concerning the district's transition to a by-trustee area election system. Can I get a motion, please?
So moved.
Thank you, Angie. Can I get a second, please?
I second it.
Thank you, Lori. Okay, with that, is there anyone? Sorry, I muted myself as I was talking. So if there's anyone that would like to speak on this from the public, please raise your hands now before we come back to the board for further discussion on this item.
I don't see any hands raised.
Okay, seeing none, I would like to ask the board if anyone has any questions, comments, or any kind of discussion you'd like to have with regards to this resolution. Jonathan's here to answer questions if you so desire. Okay, hearing none, I will go ahead and I will do a roll call vote. Lori Fadave.
Aye.
Angie Lewis.
Aye.
Julie Aiello.
Aye.
Jeannie Fernandez. Aye. Kelly Noe's absent. Okay, so Jonathan, thanks for being here.
Thank you. Have a great night.
We're going to move forward with this. Thank you so much. Okay, so with that, now we're going to move on to item number C4. Thank you very much. Consideration of approval of agreement for search and recruitment services of a chief business official between West County High School District and School Services of California, Inc. And before we do that, can I get a motion, please?
So move.
Thank you, Lori. Can I get a second, please?
I'll second.
Thank you, Julie, very much. Appreciate that. Okay, with that, is there anyone that wishes to speak on this item? I'm going to let Mia go ahead and introduce this, please.
Okay. Thank you, Jeannie. So at the May 26th board meeting, the board gave a thumbs up for us to enter into a contract with School Services of California for the recruitment of a CBO. The contract between the district and School Services was a part of the board packet for you to review. And the other piece of this agenda item is that we're also asking the board to consider a signing/retention bonus of $10,000, of which $5,000 would be given to the employee at the time of hire and another $5,000 after 18 months of service. But the first part of it is the contract, and Danielle Connolly is here from School Services to address any questions that the board or the community might have in regards to the contract.
Welcome, Danielle, and maybe you want to introduce yourself and give us a little bit of background on this.
Yes, thank you, board members and Superintendent Beal, Cabinet, and community. My name is Danielle Conley, and I'm from School Services of California, and I'm here tonight to give you a brief summary of the journey and how we got here tonight with our contract for services to conduct an executive search for your chief business official position. And then, of course, answer any questions that you may have for me about the recruitment landscape and what things are like out there on the statewide level. So I've been looking at this agenda item. The background information is so complete and so thorough, and the process is outlined in the contract. I know it's a long night, these board meetings, so I won't waste too much of your time going into that. But School Services has been conducting executive searches for around 40 years. And we do this with a very narrow focus with executive HR positions and also chief business officer positions. And part of that process when we're approached to take on a search is an evaluation, assessment, and a consultation with districts in terms of what their recruitment profile looks like and what the probability is that we would be able to assist in a successful recruitment. And so that's really what started many of these conversations with Superintendent Beal and Ms. Delpreet when they originally approached us just to find out more information about this service. We talked about the compensation because that was identified as an obstacle for the district in being able to compete with many of the other recruitments that were out there. And so, as you know, Ms. Delpreet shared with you some of the ideas that we talked about, and then you just approved an increase to the salary schedule, along with the incentive, hiring incentive and retention bonus together, which I think will be really useful outside of just the recruitment and selection process that School Services is a part of, but retention is also what matters. You've been through a lot of CBOs in a very short amount of time. And that is very costly and very difficult for the district. So really, not only finding the right candidate, but holding on to the right candidate with longevity to help create those relationships and keep the district moving in a positive direction. So that is really why I'm here tonight in terms of what is happening with recruitment, particularly in your area. There is, for lack of better description, an explosion of CBO jobs right now in your particular county. We're experiencing a lot of need, and that is some of what is driving these different districts to reevaluate their compensation and look at applying increases to help them stay competitive. It's not only just happening in Sonoma County, though, it's really happening throughout the state. So with that, I'll be quiet for a second and see if anyone has any questions or comments about the contract, about the background information, or just recruitment in general.
Thank you very much, Danielle. First, we're going to go to our public and see if there's anyone from the public that would like to ask any questions or have a moment to give comment.
I don't see anyone with their hand raised.
Okay, so now I'll move to the board and ask the board if they have any follow-up questions, any comments, etc. for Danielle, Tony, Mia, etc. Yes, go ahead, Julie.
The contract states that the fee is $21,600 plus expenses, and I was wondering what the expenses could entail and what, how high those usually go.
Sure. So the additional expenses are any advertising costs outside of the school services Searchlight and our postcards and direct recruitment. So that would be any recruitments that we post in AXA or in CASBO. They have their own costs, which usually, if you do 2 cycles in both publications, which we would recommend to cast a really wide net statewide, those run somewhere around $1,500. And then in between the first and second round interviews, for any finalists that move forward to the second round, we do an intensive reference and background check. So that will be a credit check, a DMV check, and then we ask for 20 to 30 professional affiliations of the candidates. So that's the board members, union leadership, superintendents, employees that they supervise. We have people go out and check their references, and that is $500 per candidate. So if you have 2 candidates move forward for a final interview, that could be somewhere around $1,000. And then also any expenses incurred for the travel of your search advisors. So if it's decided right now, we're kind of in this transitionary stage where we're not really doing in-person interviews for the first rounds, but many districts are starting to do that for the second rounds. So if you were to say, Danielle, I want you to come facilitate the second round interviews with us in person, then whatever those travel costs would be. Now I can share, I think I live maybe an hour away without traffic. So that would just be mileage in that case. But all in all, just to be really safe, usually we say, somewhere around $3,000 at the very top could be an additional expense that would be incurred.
Thank you. Any other questions?
I was just curious, with all of these, I'm just looking at the costs with the contract that we're offering. What's the difference between like what we've historically offered versus what we're looking to offer?
Are you referring to the difference in salary?
Yeah.
I think Mia has that.
Yeah, so Angie, we did increase the salary by 3%. Danielle had recommended that the board consider a 5%, but we had a big discussion about that at the last board meeting, and we settled, or the board settled on 3%. So that's where we're recommending. There's a agenda item later on in the board agenda item for you to approve that 3% salary increase to the CBO salary. But then there, in addition, because we didn't go with the 5%, we're recommending that sinus and retention bonus.
Okay. And then Danielle, how competitive does that make us like in the market here, being that there are a lot of vacant jobs?
It's a great question. And so let me make a couple clarifications. When I put that salary information together, what I do is I look at the AXA and the CASBO postings, which are publications with post CBO jobs and the school services jobs. And I looked at those over the 2020 school year, and then a calendar year, and then 21 up until March. So I'm not looking at benefits. I'm not looking at longevity or total comp, because what drives recruitment is you have candidates who are looking at the area, what the cost of living is, and what that salary is. Because what you want is a CBO who is happily in their seat to get up and go, that looks interesting. I want to apply and go there, and the compensation fits my needs, which they will not do if it's, maybe 3,000 over or what they're currently making or something below. So the intent when I looked at that was to think, what would get a qualified candidate to get up out of their seat and apply? Where you were initially was in the bottom tier, the bottom third of those districts. And we even we took out some of the bigs, some of those districts with 20,000 plus kids. That's hard to compare those things. So we whittled it down with ADA. And so you were more in that bottom tier. With the 3% applied, it moved you up and had you hovering around kind of that middle area. The reason why I recommended the 5 was it bumped up a little bit more towards the middle range, which I think it's not realistic to expect to jump from the lower tier to the upper. It would just impact too many other things, but just to squeak it up towards the middle. I found the hiring incentive to be very progressive, very creative, and I commend your team for coming up with that idea. And I shared that with our search team, and everybody thought, wow, that's very innovative, and that's a good idea. I think it's going to make the position more attractive. And going back to that statement, we want someone to get up out of their seat. They may do that.
Okay. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Any other questions?
Oh,
Okay.
one more. I think there's one more.
Yes, go ahead, Lori. Sorry.
I have a quick one on the timeline, just like a ballpark figure on how long it might take to be able to find some candidates who are interested and potentially hire somebody who's qualified to meet our needs.
Yeah, great question. So what we do is we'll hit the ground running. Once we have a fully executed contract, I'll assign a team, which I've done so much work with your team. It'll probably be me because I don't want to put someone new on it to learn all these factors. And so we'll create that timeline. And part of that will be the posting time. We'll schedule the first interviews, the second round interviews. Our timelines for posting for when it goes live and when it closes are 5 to 6 weeks. Anything shorter than that, you're really not going to collect the candidate pool that you want. Once it closes, we'll hold a screening meeting with the district 1 to 2 days after. And usually that first round interview is about 5 days or so after that. Second round's already scheduled. But what we'll do to begin with is look at your board meetings and we'll plan backwards. So I'll ask Superintendent Bill, when would you plan to bring someone to the board for an appointment? And we'll work backwards from there. And we have this weird summertime coming up and things kind of slow down. But I think with this particular posting time, it'll be active, over July and maybe into August a little bit. So I think that would work out. And we'll hold a midpoint meeting with the district about 3 weeks into things and let them know how it's going, right? So I may say, okay, we have 3 viable candidates, which is good at this stage because we're seeing lower numbers of candidates in our pools just because the need is so saturated, right? There's so many positions out there that we're not seeing 10 to 15 candidates in a pool. I'm happy if I see 5 to 7 and 4 to 5 of those are qualified. That's a good candidate pool for us to look at. So we'll let the district know how things are going. We'll also begin some targeted recruitment. So if you've seen some people in the county that, the superintendent is impressed with, we'll do a little shoulder tapping, a little calling. But also if we have folks who may not have been thinking of leaving and we think they would be a good match, we'll directly call them as well. And we actually get a lot of candidates that way by identifying candidates that we think would be good, just because we know we have such a far reach that we know so many CBOs in the field. We have those direct contacts. So hopefully that gives you an idea of how things work. It seems like a long time, but I promise it goes by very quickly.
Thank you, Danielle, very much.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure being here.
Pleasure having you. Okay, any further questions before we move on with the vote? Okay. Lori Fadave?
Aye.
Julie Aiello?
Aye. I had trouble getting off mute there. Aye.
Angie Lewis?
Aye.
Jeannie Fernandez, aye. Okay. Thank you very much. And thank you again, Danielle, for being here. Thank you, Mia, for your work on that. Okay, so now we will head back to our regular agenda. We are going to move to item number 1 under Education Services. Consideration of approval of updates to Board Bylaw 9323 meeting conduct.
Okay.
Okay,
You want me to go ahead with that one?
sure. Go ahead, Tony.
So what's presented before you is an update to board bylaws relative to, I think, some conversations that a couple of us have had about the need to possibly update some of these bylaws related to meeting conduct and how we set up the public comment portion of the meeting. So what you have before you are some recommended changes. And the recommended changes on the draft are in red. So you can see from looking at the draft that the specific recommendations are related to the fact that we are on Zoom. So some of the first recommended changes are the fact that we're on Zoom and some of the protocols for introducing people during Zoom. And then there's a section that clarifies that the board reserves the right to clarify or correct any information that any of the public, when the public speaks, if they have any information that's not correct, we reserve the right to update that information or misinformation that's been stated, and that each person may only address the board one time per unagendized or agendized items. Some of these are things that we have been doing, and what we're doing is updating the board bylaws to reflect our current practice. So then it talks about some of the protocols in terms of if the public is speaking off topic. And I believe that's it.
Thank you. So I would like to start this conversation by opening this up to the public to hear any comments that the public may have on this. And then we'll bring it back to the board and have some final discussion before we bring it to a vote. So I see one hand raised, two hands raised. So everybody okay with 3 minutes each? Okay, all righty.
And our two speakers are Tara Del Drago and Diane Landry. Tara, you have the floor.
Hi, I just wanted to, I'm sorry, but Tony just mentioned that a couple of us decided on this for recommendations regarding that. I don't think it should be a couple of us, and that's poorly stated. I'm sorry. It should be a majority vote on the recommendation for how bylaws get talked about. So shouldn't it be from all of you in a majority, not just a couple of you? So I do appreciate that. And I understand that in a board, had we all been together in real life and having this conversation, that should be adhered to and true. So thank you for the clarification on that. I'm done.
Thank you. Sorry.
Tara, that's exactly what we are doing by having this item on the agenda and by having a discussion after the public speaks. We're going to be doing exactly what you just asked us to do.
Our next speaker is Diane Landry.
Hello, board members. I'm Diane Landry here. I just have some comments to make about this. But first of all, anyone who served with me on the board knows that I love doing policies because that's what supports the board in its work. So I just wanted to give my perspective. First, I wanted to define who the public is. And the public in West County are all the people who live in West County, not just the students and the parents and the staff and those connected with the schools. It's everybody. And then in terms of board meetings, a board meeting is a meeting of the board held in public. It's not a meeting of the public. Boards do their work at public meetings so that the public knows what's going on, you know, what the issues are, what the decisions that are made are. And this all makes sense. I'm really pleased that the board is continuing to update policies that give support to this very important work and keep the board sharp and effective and efficient. One of the items that's being changed, it makes so much sense that the members of the public need to stay on the current topic during public comment time because, gee whiz, the board needs to do the same thing. It's keeping things equitable. So it's kind of like getting the broom out and sweeping and cleaning things up. And I'm just so pleased that the board is continuing to do this. Thank you very much for listening.
Thank you, Diane.
Thank you, Jenny. Okay, so I want to bring it back to the board now and get the board's thoughts on this topic. Anybody have anything they want to share? Angie?
I don't have much to say, just that I think it's a good idea. Like Diane said, I think just constantly updating and refining things so that we stay efficient is always a great idea.
Yeah. One of my comments would be that in bringing this forward, the thought was that our board bylaws should reflect, like what Tony said, our current practice. And what is in here is exactly what we've been doing, but it's not been in these bylaws. And now with it in the bylaws, it just makes it easier for us to be able to follow this and to stick to this. So that was the intent of that, so that we are staying current with what our practice is and spelling it out. And it's not to say that when we are no longer on Zoom that we can't come back and readdress it and take those items out. Or we could actually leave them in there because who knows if and when we might go back on Zoom someday. And then it's in there. So any other thoughts? Lori?
I'm very happy that we're going to be able to clarify comments and answer questions that the public may have, because we've been involved in some very, very complex issues over the last many months. And sometimes it's easy for both the board and the public to lose sight of what the issues are and what's actually happening. So putting into the bylaws the fact that we can clarify when necessary, I think is an incredibly important piece of it. And that's something I'd love to see us be able to continue to do after we're back, whenever that may be, having an in-person board meeting.
Good, thank you, Lori. Any other comments? Julie, do you have any comments?
No, I agree with what Lori said. I think that's a really important addition. So I'm glad that that's happening.
Good, good. I so agree too. Great. Okay. If there's no if there's no further comments, I will do a roll call vote.
Oh, Jeannie, can we get a motion?
I'm sorry. Did I not get a motion? Excuse me. Sorry. Can I get a motion? Lori's going to make a motion. Yay. Thank you. Second.
I'll second.
Thank you, Julie. Okay. Now we can do roll call vote. Sorry. Thanks for catching me on that, Karen. Good job. Lori Fadave.
Aye.
Angie Lewis.
Aye.
Julie Aiello.
Aye.
Jeannie Fernandez, aye. Thank you guys very much. Okay, let me go back to my agenda. Now on to item number 2, public hearing regarding the local control accountability plan, or as we call it in school terms, the Lcap. Tony?
So we are required by EdCode to hold a public hearing on the local control and accountability plan. So this is the public hearing. The Lcap was posted a week ago on our district website and has been available for the public to view. Following this public hearing, I will also be making a presentation of the draft, and the public will be able to respond and ask questions at that time as well.
Great, thank you very much. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and open the public hearing. If there's anyone from the public that would like to speak on this issue, please feel free, and also realize that once Tony presents the plan, you will also be allowed the opportunity to ask any questions or make comments. So with that, I'm opening the public hearing. Again, if anybody would like to speak, please raise your hand.
No speakers.
I'm going to go ahead and close the public hearing. And with that, I'm going to turn it back to Tony for the presentation of the Lcap. I'm going to recommend that all of us on the screen now turn off our videos so that the plan will be easier for everyone to see.
Okay.
Is this me, Tony, sharing the...
Yeah, I can try and see if I can share. Let's see if it, no, it's not going to work. Okay. So every 3 years, districts, all districts, school districts in the state must develop, hold on, my dog's going to bark here for a second. So let me just get him to not bark. I apologize. You would not, I have a chocolate lab, so you would not be able to hear me over his barking. So we'll start again. So this is the our district local control and accountability plan. Like I said, these are required every 3 years from all school districts in the state. This is the third year. So this is a brand new local control and accountability plan for our district. So you can go ahead to the next slide. So the local control and accountability plan has multiple components. The first component is the Lcap annual update. And the update for this year looks at the original Lcap that was in 2018 to 2021. It looks at the goals and actions that were specified in that plan, and it looks at how we did on those goals and actions. In addition, last year we completed a learning continuity and attendance plan, which has the same acronym, similar acronym. It's called the LCP. And that was modified due to the fact that we were in the COVID pandemic. So that is also a part of this plan. Then there is the new Lcap, the 2021 to 2024 Lcap, which I'm going to be reviewing those goals with you tonight. And then there's also another component that's called the Lcap Federal Addendum. And the Federal Addendum is an additional piece that we must submit that will be the next agenda item for the board for their approval. So all of these plans are part of the whole Lcap that we must submit to the state. So next slide. So the Lcap and the LCP update, what this document does, it shows the impact of our action, services, and expenditures on the goals and metrics that were identified in 2018. And it says, how did we do on those goals and metrics? And then what needs do we have based on what those goals and metrics showed us? So the successes that we saw in our Lcap and LCP update are that certainly during this past year, our staff rose to the challenge. They took the situation in stride and did the best that they possibly could do to make the situation the best for our students. Our teachers led beginning of the year professional development that was, from what all the feedback we got, was the best that we'd ever had before. We had a student follow-up for re-engagement when students were not engaged in their learning and not attending online. That re-engagement process was successful. And then, of course, not that we wanted to implement technology as quickly as we did, but the technology implementation was amazing. Our technology staff not only purchased ample supplies for both teachers and staff, for staff and students, but they also deployed it in an amazingly quick fashion. So those were the successes that we identified in our annual review. We also identified several needs. One is the incredible need moving forward for increased mental health supports. Our English learners and our academic support classes continue to be needed in order for us to address our learning loss. We need to implement family support and parent engagement programs, increase community support services and our partnerships with our community agencies, and then also provide summer school and credit makeup programs. So those are the takeaways that we got from doing the annual updates to both the Lcap and the LCP. The Lcap Federal Addendum, which I mentioned, was another component of the Lcap. The Lcap Federal Addendum has to do with federal money. It has to do with Title I, Title II, and Title III money that we receive from the federal government. The Title I money comes in to support our socially economically disadvantaged students. Our Title II money is focused on teacher professional development, specifically focused on our historically disadvantaged populations. And then Title III, we are actually in a consortium with the Sonoma County Office of Education to provide the Title III needs. And those are for supplies focused on our English language learner populations. Our Title I, our federal funds that we receive comprise less than 1% of our district's budget. It is a requirement of receiving the ESSA fundings, and it must be submitted with our Lcap every year. Our federal addendum supports LCAP goals 1 and 2, and that is listed in the federal addendum document. Next slide. So now to our local control accountability plan, and this is the new plan for next year. What is required by the state is that our LCAP address 8 state metrics, and I have listed those state metrics here. It says, like, for example, under priority number 1, it says basic services. There are several required metrics that we must have under those basic services. So our LCAP has to address all these metrics and address any of the deficiencies based on these metrics. The California data dashboard, I don't know if, can you click on that? This is where the data is stored for our state. So it's stored on the California School Data Dashboard, and this is our district data dashboard. You can see here it has all of the critical metrics, the required metrics that the state has for us. They are listed on this data dashboard. So you can see it's chronic absenteeism, suspension rate, how students do with English language arts and math, graduation rate. So all of these metrics that are listed on the data dashboard are the metrics that we must cite in our LCAP. And then the measures of how well we do are listed on this data dashboard. Okay, so next slide. So our the purpose, or one of the goals when we set out to look at our LCAP for 21-24 is we wanted this document to be a strategic plan document. We did not want it to be just another piece of paper that sat on our shelves. We wanted this document to combine all of the work that was currently happening in the district and all of the initiatives that we were undertaking. We wanted this document to be a guide for the district moving forward, and we wanted it also to incorporate the district portrait of a graduate outcomes so that moving forward, those outcomes would be a part and parcel of what the district was doing as we moved forward. Stakeholder engagement was critical in the development of this LCAP, and this stakeholder engagement actually began in 2018. When we started the portrait of a graduate profile development. That profile development was a comprehensive process where we talked to businesses and community members about what the qualities were that they wanted in graduates. So that was a process that took us at least a year, actually over a year, to complete. And so that was part of the beginning of the stakeholder engagement process about what our graduates needed. In addition, we had special education teams that were addressing disproportionality. And disproportionality is a metric that's used by the state in determining how well we're doing with our programs for students with disabilities. And we have some areas that need to be addressed in terms of special education and disproportionality. And so those are also included we're also included in the development of our LCAP because there's a comprehensive process that must happen in determining the disproportionality and what steps are next. So that was another part of the stakeholder engagement for the LCAP. In addition, the WSC site plan developments were also included. And for those who don't know, WSC is the Western Association of Schools and Colleges. It is the accrediting association for our high schools. And schools must every 4 years develop a comprehensive plan. And that has a large stakeholder engagement process as well. These LCAP goals included the goals that were included in each of our schools' WSC plans. In addition to all of that, we formed an Lcap committee, and that Lcap committee was composed of members of the school site councils from each of our 3 schools, which have administrators, teachers, classified staff, and community members on those teams. Those teams, when we met, we began meeting in February to disaggregate data, which means look at all of our data and figure out where are the areas that we are doing well and what areas we need to improve in. We also conducted empathy interviews with key stakeholder groups, students and parents and teachers that represented our priority groups, our English language learners, our low income, foster and homeless youth. So we met with those stakeholder groups, conducted interviews with them, gathered feedback, and then outlined the needed services for students. So it was quite a comprehensive process that we used in developing this Lcap. Next slide. So what data did we find? What we found was, and first I want to note that the majority of this data, besides the interviews that we did, came from the 1920 school year, because this past year, since we have been in distance learning, most of the measures were not conducted this past year. So the data dashboard information that we used was from 1920. So at that time, when we were last in person, our suspension rates were high, higher than the state and the county, and they were actually highest for our priority groups. Our chronic absenteeism rates were also high. That's chronic absenteeism is for students who are absent for more than 10% of a school year. So if there's 180 days, they're absent for more than 18 of those days. The attendance rate was 92%. In terms of high schools usually have higher attendance rates, closer to 93 or 94%. Our achievement on English language arts on the Smarter Balanced assessments was in the yellow range. And those ranges go all the way from red, orange, yellow, and then green. And so it was in the yellow range. But our significant subgroups had performances that were lower than that. Our students with disabilities performed in red, and our Hispanic and socioeconomically disadvantaged students were in the orange. Excuse me. For math, all of our students were in the orange range, and our students with disabilities were in red, and our students that were economically disadvantaged were in orange. There was also results for A to G course access, and A to G course access means that students that have access to all of the A to G courses, the full range of courses that we offer that are required for college enrollment. EAP results are part of the SBAC results, and the EAP show what students are ready, what juniors are ready to enter the state universities. And then we also had Youth Truth data. Youth Truth data is a survey. I think some of you have heard about the Youth Truth data. And it's a survey that goes out to students and staff and parents about asking critical questions about how students are feeling and how things are going in the school. All of those indicators show that we need to address college and career awareness, and that our students do not feel prepared for the work world when they leave our schools. In addition, there's Youth Truth data and empathy interviews that show what a lot of our public has said to us too, is that we need to address mental health issues, especially coming back from COVID and from the pandemic. So this data, we got the next slide, led us to develop 3 goals. Our previous Lcap had 5. But we are proposing 3. The first goal is to improve conditions of learning and school climate and engagement. The second goal, to promote course access and student success. And the third, to improve college and career readiness through implementation of the district portrait of a graduate outcomes. And I'm going to go through each one of these goals. So the first goal, to improve conditions of learning, school, and climate engagement. In the Lcap document itself that was attached to this agenda item, it lists specifically the costs for each of these and where they're coming from. Now, our Lcap not only includes services that are being provided by our supplemental grant funds, but we've also included services that are being provided through the expanded learning grant, opportunities grant that the board has already approved. So we included all of those in the plan so that we could best represent all of the actions that the district is taking. So you can see here a list of the actions that are under this goal. It includes mental health counseling, all of the additional mental health supports and programs. For example, under here would be Keeping Kids in School that addresses absenteeism, or Care Solace, which is an outside counseling referral program. There's funds allocated in this program for restorative practices training to address our high suspension rate. There are behavioral supports. There's proposals for partnerships with community services in our area, most specifically with West County Health Services. We're moving forward with a partnership with them. There's funds for implementing an advisory curriculum and professional development for teachers. There's a mental health screener so that all students would have access to a mental health screener so we can identify those students that need additional counseling support. There's professional development for teachers and staff, and then also funds for a community building program. Sorry, I'm having a hard time. Okay, the second goal is to promote course access and student success. And this goal is primarily focused on academic success and access for students. The first goal was primarily focused on social emotional supports. So this one is more the academic focused goal. So here you can see things like summer school, English learner classes, bilingual paraeducators. There's an addition of a family engagement specialist, which will be a bilingual person to work with families and be able to be in the office to interact with our Spanish-speaking families when they enter, and be able to explain the educational system and give them access to services from the very beginning when they enroll their students. There are academic support classes and paraeducator supports that we've increased paraeducator supports to not only work in the academic support classes, but also to push into classes to help students with disabilities be readily engage in the curriculum. There's funds for development of common assessments. There's also some funds for transportation services for low-income students, bus and activity passes, additional library hours, more translation services, and then technology and software for students who might still need help with access to technology or internet services. And then there's also some funds for student planners. The last goal is to improve college and career readiness through the implementation of the district portrait of a graduate outcomes. This goal is focused on creating work-based learning and project-based learning opportunities for students, and expanding and implementing the current pathways that we have, and then developing new pathways that directly connect to the work opportunities in our community. So there's a work-based learning coach that's part of this goal. Naviance, which is a career interest programs, and have all students have access to this program. It mentions here new school model coaches. We've talked in previous meetings about the new school model grant. This goal incorporates that work into the Lcap so that it's something that we continue to work towards. It also provides release time for our CTE coaches, our career technical education coaches. It provides professional development and curriculum resources, and also pathway materials, specifically for Laguna as they are expanding their current pathways and developing new pathways right now. Okay, so those are the three goals and the proposed actions and services that go along with them. Another important part of the Lcap is you need to be able to show that your plan has provided increased or improved services for our priority populations. So we need to be able to show that the services that I've just previously mentioned, that they give us a percentage, and our percentage is 7.15% of our total allocation, or the equivalent of $1,288,000 or $288,314 allocated to our priority students in terms of services. When you add up the services that we have allocated towards these groups, our allocation is over that amount. It's $1,298,663 in total services to those groups. So we have achieved our required allotment for increased and improved services. It's the next one. This is a list of the increased and improved services that contribute to that amount. So you can see here, it's a lot of what I had mentioned before, and it's listed here as showing evidence that these services are going to our priority groups. To the next slide. Okay. So that's a summary of our Lcap. I didn't want to spend the time going through each of those wonderfully exciting detailed documents, but that gives you the highlights of each of those plans. Today we are here to we're giving the presentation and the public hearing on the Lcap, and then soon following will be the presentation on the budget. Both the public hearing and the presentation on the budget. These are required to be presented at the same board meeting, and then to also be at least 72 hours after this, a second board meeting, but that approval will come to the board on June 23rd. After the board, assuming the board approves both of those then need to be sent to SCO for approval. And not only the new Lcap, but the Lcap federal addendum and the annual updates, all of those documents together get sent to SCO for their approval. And that's my presentation. I know that was a lot of information in a relatively short amount of time. So I'm anticipating there might be some questions. No, Jeannie. Julie, you have a question?
Yeah, I'm assuming that some of the concerns recognized in the Lcap will be addressed by some sort of in-service training.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
and I was wondering how much the teachers are included in the decisions about what in-service training they receive.
Yeah, there's different pots of money that are allocated in the Lcap, both in the supplemental funds and in the extended learning opportunities grant fund for different kinds of professional development. So now that the money's been allocated there will be conversations as we begin next year with department chairs and teachers about what specific kinds of in-service do we need related to those topics.
Great.
Yeah. If there's any other questions from the board. Okay, another one. Go ahead, Julie.
This is kind of a comment. I was just feeling from, my own son's experience. I would really like to see some smaller colleges being, the information about smaller colleges being given to students that maybe don't feel that the UCs are the right fit for them, because there's so many alternative type of schools that a lot of kids would be much more successful in. And I would just encourage, more information about those colleges be available to the kids.
Yeah. I agree. And that can come through the use of Naviance. That program actually has access to different colleges. The college and career coordinator also is key in that, along with the academic counselors. And then one of the things we're adding is a work-based learning coach. So I think between all of those key people, that will definitely be able to increase that awareness. Definitely. I'm not sure where Jeannie is.
Hold on. She's here.
I think if there aren't any other questions from the board, I think usually at this point we go to public comment on this item. There she is.
Here I am, sorry. Are there, sorry, I was, had to use the restroom. Are there any clarifying questions from the board? But again, I want to comment that these are just clarifying questions. We'll come back for further discussion from the board after we hear from the public. But any clarifying questions from Julie, Lori, or Angie, or myself? Okay, so with that, we will open up the comment for the public.
Looks like you have 2 as of right now.
Okay. Was the board agreed that we will allow 2 minutes? Excuse me, 3 minutes, sorry. 3 minutes? Okay. All right, Jenny, go ahead, thank you.
Whoops, I just lost the people, hold on. First speaker is Tara Del Drago, and second speaker is Leah Woody. Tara, you have the floor.
Thank you. I would just like to say to Julie, Lori, everybody that said that about the colleges, that should also apply to our incoming high school students too. They should also get that right to get to have that chance to do that. So thank you for saying that. I would also like to know, how do you foresee servicing over 500 more kids added to the over already 1,000 students at Annalee? 1 out of 3 kids right now are needing those services. And how do you see making larger classes and many more kids, making that feasible to help make them feel safe and comfortable in this pandemic and everything going on right now? That need is huge. Working at Forestville School and seeing the need, our counselor cannot even keep up with the number of students right now, let alone seeing the number of suicides and everything going on with teenagers and high schoolers and what's going on right now. I hear you say you are adding all these paraprofessionals, all these services, but at what ratio to over 1,500 kids now? I'm sorry, but 1 out of 3 kids right now are needing those services just in a small school. So I'm questioning that. I'm concerned about that because the need these kids have right now and shoving them into a bigger school with more kids, having to have that adversity and having to feel that insecurity being pushed into something that they're not feeling comfortable with. It's huge. It's happening, and the need for that and that's a huge concern. So I'm sorry, but I hear your numbers. I hear you saying what you're adding. I don't think that's going to be helping these kids. I'm sorry, but they are concerned. They are struggling already. They are the distance learners alone that still can't and haven't been back at school. And then whether they're going to go back to school or not, period. Have you taken that into consideration? These teenage years are huge, and you are putting all of these kids, hundreds of kids, at risk. Even further, I have 3 kids. I have 2 going into high school next year. 1 out of my 3 are at risk right now. And I'm sorry, that concern is huge. So that anxiety, that instability, that insecurity, that reality is not okay for you to take that into your own hands and shove that into thousands of students. I'm sorry. Thank you.
Our next speaker is Leah Woody.
Hi, yeah, thank you, Jenny. I just wanted to mention, like, as part of the family engagement, the family engagement position, I know I have picked that up over this last year and previous years as my predecessor. And as mentioned per Lcap recommendation, I would suggest this include social events, school events, parents that want to participate in school activities and volunteer. This would be also including social media, website, email bulletin. I've been doing the email bulletin at our school, and maintaining communication for parents especially and families that want to be involved, especially this year, you know, as we consolidate. There's so many parents that want to be involved. So I'd like to be involved in that. I also, before I lose my time, I also want to mention that I did send a letter to Allie Green, and I think it was shared with you, Tony, about summer school and the need for college and career services. I actually worked for free all last summer, working with students because of COVID and because of the learning loss. In terms of learning loss, meaning not knowing where to go, what do I do? I know that I'm going to this college, but I don't know like what the steps are, specifically for JC students. And it was horrible. And it's already started now. I'm already working now with students. And I want to bring that up to the board, and I'd like that to be considered, especially for next summer, that college and career services need to be available for students, and it needs to be part of summer schooling. I don't know why it hasn't been up until now, but I can tell you that it's needed. And thank you. Thanks for your service. And yeah, that's it.
Okay. Thank you very much. All right, so now that we've heard from the public on this, I'd like to bring it back to the board for any questions that you may have of Tony and Anne, because I know Anne had a big part in this with regards to budget, and go from there. So Lori, Angie, or Julie, any questions or comments or discussion that you'd like with regards to this plan? I, for one, just want to say thank you to Tony. I know the hours and hours that she must have put into this. Mm-hmm. It is so prescriptive, and that doesn't just, it doesn't just come out of a computer. You got to find it. You got to do it, and then you got to put it in there. So, and then again, thanks to Anne so much for all of your help getting this piece together. Any other comments? Hearing, Lori, go ahead. Oh, Angie has one too. Okay.
I'd like to second that, Jeannie, that I know that it took a lot of work putting that together. And I'm really impressed with how the goals are focusing on the needs of underserved groups and the kids who really have been at risk. And hopefully with new pathways for careers, particularly, and the extra support that they're going to be getting both for mental health as well as the academic support. It's really going to increase the attendance rate, which is obviously going to be a boost to us in many ways, and really helpful for the students to get them to see that there's a benefit and that they will have a personal goal for their own education, and can see where their education is going to lead them. So thanks very, very much to you and everybody who worked on it. It looks tremendous.
Thank you.
Angie, you had your hand raised.
Yeah, I just wanted to commend too. And also, I think that, there's always room for improvement. So doing things like this that hold accountability and kind of circle back to how we've done and what we need to improve on. As a board member and a parent, I really appreciate this. And I think, bringing together the parents and just all these different components that help us get these kids ready, because there's so many moving parts. And I've got 2 graduates now, and we're still trying to refine this process, and I don't feel like we're that great at it yet. So it warms my heart and puts me at ease knowing that we're all kind of working on this together to get better and do it better. So I think that I really appreciate it. I'm happy that we do things like this and implement them. And I just appreciate all the hard work and humility to kind of circle back and look at, these things and make them better. So thank you.
Yeah. Great. Thank you so much.
So this is just a discussion item tonight. It will come back on the 23rd for consideration of approval.
Oh, that's right. I'm sorry. I said we were going to vote, but we're not going to vote.
Not tonight.
All right. And then we're going to move on to the next item. It's a presentation of the federal addendum. So I'll turn that back over to Tony.
Yes. So I did mention this as part of the Lcap presentation. So in addition to the Lcap itself, there needs to be approval separately of the Lcap federal addendum, and the federal addendum is specific to the federal money, the Title I, the Title II, and the Title III money that we receive from the federal government. So there, I included that official document in this item, and this is also just a discussion item tonight because it also has to come back at our next meeting for a consideration of approval.
Thank you so much. Okay, is there do we want to take any more comment on that item? I kind of think if anybody wanted to say something, they'd raise their hand, right?
Yeah.
Anybody have any comments from the board on the federal addendum? Okay. Fantastic. We've done number 5.
And 6.
And 6. All right, so we'll move to number 7, consideration of approval of the Agricultural Career Technical Education Incentive Grant. Can I get a motion first?
I move that we approve the Agricultural Career Technical Education Incentive Grant.
Thank you very much. Angie, a second, please.
I'll second it.
Thank you, Lori. Okay. Are you presenting this, Tony?
Yes,
okay.
I am. But I'm not going to take credit for the writing of this grant. Heidi Mickelson is the person who writes this grant every year. She is actually on a little retreat with her, what I want to say, prospective FFA club officers right now. So she's not available tonight to speak to this. But like I said, she presents this or prepares this every year. It is the Ag Cte Incentive Grant is a grant through the Department of Education, and it's specific to providing funds for the agricultural program. So you can see it requires, I'm pulling it up right now. In the packet, it shows you that the total estimated award is would be $24,864, and it also shows what it would be used for in terms of the ag program. It looks like it's mostly for a vehicle and trailer maintenance and FFA memberships, sub-costs, and conference registrations. So it requires the a board's approvals in order for her to submit it.
Okay. Is there any comments from the public on the CTE grant for agriculture? Hearing none, seeing none. Is there any comments from the board? Any questions you might have of Tony? Yes, Lori.
I just think that the ag program is a tremendous asset and a wonderful thing for the kids in our district. And without it, I think that a whole, bedrock of the culture of West County would be lost. And the kids do a tremendous job year round. And I always enjoy, like back in the old days when you can go to the fair and actually, seeing, them, with their work there or just touring around, when they're working with the animals or the fields on the campuses. Tremendous. And I really hats off to them and for the grant. And I'm really glad that these funds are available for the kids.
Yeah, me too. I agree. It looks like we've got a couple of people. Is the board inclined to go ahead and still let them have their time to speak? You guys okay with that? Okay. Janny, you want to go ahead and let them in? 3 minutes, I suspect, since we only have 2 folks.
Jennifer Duckworm, then Tara Del Drago. Jennifer, go ahead. You have the floor.
Okay. Actually, my question was on item number 6. And Jenny, you seem like you went over. I don't know if you guys covered it earlier and I missed it.
Item 6 was moved on the agenda to the beginning of the meeting.
It was moved to the beginning?
Yeah. Were you here for the beginning of the meeting?
No, I was with my mom. Sorry. I just had a question, if that's okay. Is that okay?
I don't believe so, but I'll let the board address that.
Different item.
Jennifer, it would be best because we really can't go back to that item since we've already been there. If you have a question or you need to make a comment, please do us a favor and email that to us or email it to Jenny, and Jenny can get it out to us or Tony, and then we can answer the question.
Okay, so like you want me just to submit a chat? Is that what you're saying?
No, email us, please.
Oh, email it? Okay.
Yes.
All right, thanks.
Thank you. Sorry you missed it, but we had a presenter, and we needed to respect their time, so we moved that item to the top of the agenda.
And our next speaker is Tara Del Drago.
Okay, so thank you. And first off, I would like to say I've submitted about 29, 30 emails, and I have not gotten a response back since you guys decided to only let the president address that. So I'm sorry, again, being part of a board, we all get to address emails that are submitted to us individually. So I'd like to just put that out there and say that. So thank you. Also, in addition to that comment that was just made, I think it's really important that everybody gets to have their opinion and gets to state that and get to be acknowledged for that and not have to have the board directed. And I'm sorry, Jeannie, at the beginning of the meeting, it was not clear why or stated that Kelly wasn't here tonight, and I've had several emails and text messages to why is Kelly not here tonight and why is that not being said. So
Tara, it actually was stated at the top of the meeting 2 times.
I was on the beginning of the meeting and so were several, and we didn't hear it. So I'm just addressing what I'm being asked. So thank you. Can we have that clarified right now again, because I still am being asked that.
Kelly could not attend the meeting. She had a family situation she needed to deal with. And with that, I am, as vice president, I am standing in her place.
Okay, thank you. But again, going back to what we're talking about again, please just keep it focused on what's happening with our school. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, so we have a roll call vote to take on this item. And Lori Fadave,
Aye.
Angie Lewis,
Aye.
Julie Aiello,
Aye.
Jeannie Fernandez, aye. Thank you guys very much. Now we are going to move to business services. We have a public hearing with regards to the West Sonoma County Union High School District proposed budget for 2021-2022. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Anne.
Thank you, Jeannie. I would like to introduce Katrina Howitt. She is a veteran school business official, has worked in many different districts over her career. We were very fortunate to be able to have her come and assist us with the district budget and actually prepare the budget. I would also like to give her the credit for the work on the Lcap because she really worked on making sure that the budget and the Lcap are aligned, which is quite time consuming. The Lcap in and of itself is a huge project. The budget is a huge project, and making sure they line up is yet another big part of the process. So I'm going to turn it over to Katrina. She will give a presentation on the budget, including a review of the district's projected reserves, which is required to be part of the hearing. And then we can take comment from the public and questions from the board as usual. Thank you.
Perfect. Thank you. Thank you, Katrina. And I'm sorry that I didn't know that you had done that work. So thank you so much for the hard work that you did with the Lcap.
Oh, you're welcome. Thank you. As Ann said, my name is Katrina Howitt. I am a retired veteran CBO, and I feel fortunate that I was available to help when Ann and Tony reached out and the district reached out. So, Jeannie, I forwarded the presentation if you wouldn't mind sharing it. There, I'm a little.
Hold on, Katrina. Everybody, let's close our screen so that this can be viewed easier by the public. Thank you.
Okay, so I'm a little further away. I actually reside up in Humboldt County and have been able to remotely log in and work closely with Ann and Tony and Mia and work on getting you a preliminary budget. If you want to go ahead and forward the page, there we go. So I know that Tony just covered this. The board is going to hold a public hearing tonight, or they have held it, to review the Lcap. And the other requirement of that is the budget, and then reviewing the fund balances and the reserves. So at the separate meeting, the board will adopt, hopefully, both the budget and the Lcap and be in compliance of having an adopted budget and Lcap for next year prior to June 30th. Next slide. Okay, so one of the advantages, you might say, of having me come in right now and help is I really did a lot of zero-based budgeting, a lot of conversation with getting historical information from Jeff prior to us leaving, and really working closely with Mia and Tony to build your budget and review all the assumptions and data provided herein. So when building a budget, the first thing we look at is enrollment and ADA. These two things, as I know you're familiar with, drive your funding. So in looking at this, your enrollment for 2021 And this is your actual enrollment numbers as of CBED, so October date is 1822. And as we move forward, building your enrollment for future, the methodology used by the district, and I based your projections on that methodology, is actually for 21-22, we looked at your actual enrollments in hand for next year. And then we reduced it by 5% as the County Office of Education is projecting in this climate with this pandemic. This is how we're projecting forward. When you take that data and you step it forward, what's called a modified cohort survival, in layman's terms, means we move the 9th graders to 10th grade, we move the 10th graders to 11th, then we move the 11th graders to 12th grade each year. And we adjust it by the average for the last 5 years of change. When you try to figure out what kind of 9th grade enrollment you're going to have annually, you look at the data from all the feeder districts, and the high school district has historically received about 80% of the enrollment from the feeder districts. So taking all that into consideration, what you see here is that enrollment for 21-22 is down, and then it slowly starts to creep back up. Now, these numbers are soft. Your next check-in will be after school starts, when the children are actually here, the students are here, and we're going to be able to look at your enrollment again and project it going forward. Now, as you can see in the middle of this slide, enrollment is how many students are here, so that determines class size. But average daily attendance determines how you're paid. So average daily attendance is, if student A comes to school and only makes it to school 95% of the days, you get 0.95 to 1 enrollment. These are the numbers, the average daily attendance, that are calculated right off the district's enrollment. And the percentage used to do this calculation is the district's historical percentage. We're not using Sonoma County's percentage. We're not using the state's percentage. So these numbers are tailored for your district, and they are not too far off the ones that your CBO presented to you for second interim. We used the same formula. We just moved it forward filled with the information we knew, your enrollments in hand for next year. Now, I wanted to talk just a moment, the difference between average daily attendance and then what you're funded off of. Now, the state, in its wisdom, and this is really a good thing actually, says that in current year, your funding is either based on today's ADA, or you get to use last year's ADA, whichever number is higher. And why that's really significantly important is if you're in a situation where your enrollment is declining, it gives you a buffer of a year to make the necessary adjustments to maybe your staffing or your program or your budget, so you can respond to that decline in enrollment. So 2021, the ADA number you see in 2021 is actually 1920's ADA. We had this special circumstance called a pandemic, and the state said use 1920 for 2021. Now, in 21-22, you can see in the middle of the slide that the average daily attendance is projected to be 1499.55, so slightly under 1,500. Yet when you look down further, the funded ADA is that 1682.72 number. This is the state allowing us to have a year to cushion that fall. And then when we move to 22-23, you don't see the 1499 as the funded number. You see the higher of current year or last year. So you see that you actually benefit from having the enrollment slightly increase. You don't have to go to the lowest number. So that's what happens as we're looking from enrollment to ADA to funded ADA. Okay. Now, why I really talked about that difference in funded ADA is when that ADA drives our local control funding formula. And this is where you can see, in 21-22, you see that there's actually an increase. And this budget's projected with the May revised number of 5.07% COLA applied to the local control funding formula. In January, the number was going to be 3.48%. So when the May revise came out, the number increased. But when you look at 22-23, you can see that while we're still projecting a COLA of 2.48%, there's actually going to be $1.1 million less in local control funding formula. So our main funding stream is going to reduce by $1.1 million. When you go out one more year, you can see it's going to increase by $721,000. That's because we've taken the fall and we're starting to climb back up out of the with a slow increase. And a lot of that increase is directly attributed to the 3.11% COLA. Now, these COLA numbers are the projections from the Department of Finance that came out from the state with the May revise. So that's the basis of where the income numbers come from. This is our main funding stream, so I thought it was really important to talk about it in detail. But we all know there's additional, you were good, Cte. We all know there's additional income. So the other kinds of income that we've gone through all of these income sources. I've gone through them. I've had a lot of conversation with Anne. We've confirmed off all the funding sources, websites, what your actual income is projected to be. So federal funding, we have Title I, Title II, Title VI. Those are not large amounts of money, but those are federal income streams. We receive special education funding called IDEA. And then we have 3 sources of COVID funding that are coming from the federal source. They're all abbreviations, and I apologize that I can't give you the detail, but ESSER 1, ESSER 2, and ESSER 3 are the 3 main federal streams. We've used ESSER 1, the district has used that funding. ESSER 2 is projected to be used in year 2 of our multi-year plan, and ESSER 3 will come into play in year 3 of the multi-year plan. In the state funding, we have lottery, restricted lottery, and unrestricted. We have more COVID funding that's coming directly from the state. We have what's referred to as ELO, which is the and the IPI. So I know that the board reviewed and approved an ELO plan at the last month at the board meeting. And first instruction is what IPI. Okay, we're going to move on, and then in state funding, we see what's called mandated costs.
Katrina, we're losing you a little bit with.
I'm sorry. Here, let me see if this helps. Is this any better?
Yes, thank you.
Okay. In the local funding streams, you receive interest, you receive donations, and you receive local grants. Examples of that are last year, RESIG, which is the Redwood Empire Schools Insurance Group, did a workers' comp refund.
Katrina,
Katrina,
can I ask
if there's additional?
I'm sorry, you're breaking up quite a bit. Can I ask you to turn off your video? Because I know you have spotty Wi-Fi.
I'm so sorry. There, how's that?
Better.
Okay. Okay, so those are all the funding streams. And I think what I wanted to stress to you is we've gone through all of your funding to make sure that we could verify the funding that the district would anticipate receiving next year. When we look at expenditure assumptions, the largest expenditure is your staffing. So we spent time with Mia and with Anne truly going through all of position control. And I want to report to the board and to the superintendent that
Your position control system, which accounts for all of your staffing, has been balanced, and that's what we use to build your budget. So these are the FTEs that are included in your budget: certificated FTEs, certificated administrators, classified FTEs, and classified administrators. So you have a total of 184.63 in the preliminary budget that's been presented. The other expenditure assumptions, we want to let you know that all one-time costs that were recorded in the 2021 budget have been removed. All one-time income has been removed. We operated on the premise that all programs would stay within their funding source where possible. An example where that wasn't possible would be like special education, which your program budget is driven by the students' needs that are identified in their IEPs. The fiscal recovery plan that the board put into place with the second interim, those components are incorporated, and the consolidation of the two comprehensive high schools is included in those assumptions are included in your preliminary budget. So on this page, it's this page screen and the next screen are kind of just a snapshot, the overview, so we can talk briefly about what's going on. In the column that says column B, your 2021-22 budget, the preliminary budget, you can see the change in income. Your overall income is actually going on by $549,000. The majority of this is local revenue and the COVID monies being removed from the budget. You can see that the expenditures have gone up in the categories as listed, with a decline in the budget for books and supplies. I want to assure the board that in the preliminary budget, the salary settlements that were just agreed upon are incorporated in this budget. When you come down, what's really important for me to point out to you in this draft of the budget is if you look at the bottom, it says, it's on line 39, it says section E and it's in yellow. That's a negative $493,000. So what that says is that we're spending more in this draft budget than you're bringing in income in next year. And what I want to point out, while it's deficit spending, the majority of that $493,000 is not a structural deficit. And what that means is we've budgeted for the recall election that's coming in next year. There's budgets for the consolidation of the high schools. And an example of that is the one-time budget for uniforms. That's not going to be an ongoing cost. So the majority of the $493,000 is not structural deficit. If you go to the next page, what you see here is the fund balance component. Okay, you start at the top where you had 3.5 million. You can see you're spending 493,000 more. So the ending fund balance is projected to be 3.033 million. The components of the ending fund balance, which gets to the next part, the discussion of the components of the ending fund balance, are you have a small revolving cash, you have a little bit of prepaid expenditures where we have prepaid a contract, and this will be the last component of that contract. That's the $7,955. We're holding 3%, the required reserve for economic uncertainties. The restricted program balances of $575,000. You see, it says LCFF supplemental. So the LCAP, Tony spoke briefly to, there's a requirement of $1.288 million is spent in the LCAP to provide support to those students who need that extra support. Well, we account for that in its own program line. In accounting ease, the state has us put that on the unrestricted side of the journal entry, the general ledger. Yet that money needs to be accounted for in the Lcap. So we're reserving the balance in the ending fund balance so it is accounted for properly. The next two items are significant and they're large, so I want to make sure I tie them back to you to the LCFF funding stream. It says reserve for future revenue loss, $1,025,000. And right underneath it, it says using the higher LCFF COLA of 5.07, $210,112. The $210,000, we needed to specifically earmark it because that's the difference between the percentage COLA that came out with the January governor's budget release and the May revise. And until the state actually takes action to adopt a budget, this is a reasonable projection of what may or may not be there. The $1,025,000 right above, and I observed that it was also reserved in your ending fund balance for second interim. So I'm sure Jeff and Ann had previous conversation with the board. We looked at how you're going to have a loss of income in 22-23 of $1.1 million in your local control funding formula funding. So this money will help buffer that loss next year, meaning that I would be concerned that when we complete the multi-year for you, you're still going to see an additional gap, a bigger deficit spending. But we know right from the original projection, you're going to be down $1.1 million for 22-23. So you're reserving this million in the ending fund balance, and that is going to help buffer and allow the district to have enrollment occur, schools start next year, and then plan and make decisions on how to address the reduced income and how that's going to affect in out years. The last item that's a component of your ending fund balance is a reserve for textbook purchase for your social studies or science curriculum that you need to adopt for 22-23. And this money's being actually reserved in your unrestricted lottery fund balance. When we take all those components into consideration, your unappropriate ending fund balance is projected to be about $2,800, $2,785. I am concerned as we walk out through the multi-year. I'll work closely with Ann and Tony, the superintendent, to make sure we've filled in and made any adjustments and removed any one-time cost as we move out to give you an accurate projection of what the next few years will look like financially for the district. Okay, the next steps is I'm working closely with staff at the district to complete the multi-year projection and the criterion standards. We may have a few other small minor adjustments as we complete a review of your preliminary budget for next year, but I would anticipate that your general fund and the majority of your budget will be presented to you very close to what we're presenting to you this evening. The state has an obligation to adopt a budget by June 15th, and then the board will come back and adopt both the Lcap and the budget at the June 23rd meeting. The next component is the district will then submit all of that to the County Office of Education by June 30th, satisfying that financial requirement. And then the district will have 45 days to revise the budget once the state has adopted their budget, if needed. So sometimes the state will adopt a budget and there will be more money, and sometimes they'll adopt a budget and there will be less money. But whatever changes the state budget adoption makes to our budget assumptions, then we will compile a list of those changes and bring back those revisions to the board in the first 45 days of the year. I know that was quick. Again, I'll repeat what the superintendent said. It's a lot of information to throw at you guys in a short amount of time. So I guess I would ask, I'd open it up if you have any questions, or is there anything I can answer?
Well, let's start with this. Is there any clarifying questions that any board member might have for Katrina? Again, just clarifying questions. We'll get to comments, etc. later, but if anybody has anything they want clarified from her. Okay, seeing none, I think we're going to go ahead and open it up to the public for comment time. So if you're interested, member of the public that would like to make a comment with regards to our preliminary budget, to please raise your hand.
You have 6 right now.
Okay, we'll give it a couple more seconds. Just want to be sure that everybody has the opportunity to participate if they would like. Okay, looks like we're going to end at Debbie. And that's 6 people. Are we thinking maybe 2 minutes apiece? Board members? Everybody okay with that? Okay. All right, Jenny, 2 minutes apiece.
I'm just getting my 2-minute clock going.
No problem.
Alrighty.
And Katrina, if they have questions, we're gonna hold any comment on that till at the end, if there's something that is easily clarified.
Okay.
We have 6 speakers. I'm going to bring you all into the room. First speaker, if I could remind you not to unmute yourself until I ask you to. Tara Del Drago, Haim, Jennifer Duckhorn, Andrea Williams, Epstein, Brian Miller, and Debbie. Tara, you have the floor.
Thank you. Katrina, thank you for bringing that up about the state. We have also at our school had that from the state saying to use the money for the year for regarding enrollment for what it is needed for. And they have given a kind of a, I would say, rubber band for what to use that for what the kids need. And so I would like to again say that regarding enrollment, why are we adding numbers when it should be smaller numbers for the kids to get what they need? It's actually kind of ludicrous that we're expecting almost 2,015 to 2,000 students to get these services versus smaller classes, which is what is actually needed. So we are still spending more money, the same amount, if not more, keeping all 3 campuses open, yet moving El Molino to Annalee, Laguna to El Molino, admin to El Molino, yet keeping the overflow at Laguna. So I'm sorry, it just seems ludicrous. Why are we knowingly spending the money for the recall that you just put into the budget, knowing that will save money because it's going to happen, so that reserve could actually be fiscally responsibly saved, and knowing that regarding those numbers. So the federal funding, the idea regarding the Title 1, 2, 3, I'm just curious. It's so confusing and bewildering on why this is still happening. So please do the right thing and thank you. Keep El Molino open, keep all 3 schools open, because it's actually saving us money, not spending more money like you guys are still doing. Thank you.
Thank you for your comment. Next speaker is Haim. Sorry, I don't know how to say.
Sorry, it's Hain. It's my last name, my married last name. It's Gillian Hayes here. Last night, I was up till 1:30 in the morning working on a $263 million budget for my city that I work in, I've got 19 years experience working with multi-million-dollar budgets. I appreciate the work that's gone into this. It's been quite difficult for many years. I can respect that. But I just want you to know that I see what you've presented tonight. I see what you presented last October and everything in between. And I see that you did not have to close El Molino to have a balanced budget and acceptable reserves. Period. End of story. You've spent more on rebranding, moving furniture and supplies, retaining both athletic directors and teachers, hiring more staff, keeping all facilities open. As Tara said, you're budgeting for the recall and litigation that were unnecessary. You're spending all of this money and not saving what you claim to save in the March 10th meeting when you voted to close our kids' beloved school. With the potential revenues and the actually solid revenues coming in, we just had to take a look at those last night as well for my city, and I've also looked at them for the schools here, all the stimulus money, the COVID money that's discretionary and non-discretionary, all of the projected state budget increases, which you are allowed to change your budget after you see what those are formally 45 days after, and yet you're still moving forward with a direction that's harmful for our children at El Molino. You're not thinking about the far-reaching corners of West County when kids drive from Jenner and Monterey. Have you driven that drive? Do you know the impact of vehicle miles traveled? There are many ways to slice a pie, guys. You chose the one that isn't putting our 566 El Molino kids first, and it's very, very disappointing. I understand that at this point, you keep moving forward, despite what the community has said, despite what the kids have said. Did you read the transportation article in the paper today? It was great. It was written by an El Molino student. Please take a look. These are major concerns that the board did not consider before voting in March. Wrong choice.
Thank you for your comments. Next speaker is Jennifer Duckworm.
Okay, hi, thanks. I just, Katrina or board or Tony, whomever wants to address it. In the enrollment in ADA slide, you projected. So I'd kind of like to have that number. And if you would want to give me it as a percentage, that works as well. And that's it. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker is Andrea Williams Epting.
Hello, thank you. I also have a question about the interdistrict transfer and how many students are you anticipating transferring out of the district, especially the ones that went to El Molino, who, if we're going to be forced to have the extra miles, we might as well transfer out of the district and go to Windsor, which offers much more programs, and they don't impact the students or talk to them about budget cuts and all that type of stuff. The financial impacts on our families who are already socioeconomically disadvantaged, has that been taken into consideration? Single family homes, like I'm a single mother and I don't see it being reasonable for me to take both my children to different schools spread out with over an hour of transportation going from Sebastopol back to Guerneville to take my son over to his school and then go to work and then all over again. How are these decisions made without taking into consideration how that will impact the families? And if that impacts the families, that impacts the students. And how can you expect students to be at their prime when there's so many factors that are held against them? They've dealt with floods, multiple fires, multiple evacuations. And you mentioned increasing in mental health services, but this consolidation is adding to that issue. I transferred my daughter out to Windsor High School because I don't want to deal with it, but good luck.
Thank you for your comment. The next speaker is, sorry, you guys are messing with me up here. Looks like Debbie.
Okay.
There you are.
Hi, this is Debbie Ramirez. And Katrina, thank you for your report. I have a question, and I apologize if I missed it. I was sort of multitasking while you were presenting. But I noticed for federal revenues for the 21-22 year, you're projecting a nearly $1.4 million decrease in federal revenues. And if you could please address what that reflects. I'm sorry if you did mention it and I missed it, but that's a big number. Thank you.
Thank you. And then Brian, I saw that you stopped raising your hand. Did you not want to speak?
No, I think it was somebody had mentioned the ADA, which is what I was going to talk about, but it's just that's a really profound loss. I mean, 195 student projected loss is 10% of the whole district. And so that's upwards of $2 million if you do 10,000 a student. So what's our confidence level that we are going to see a loss of 195 students? Because we've lost students for, as everyone knows, 16 straight years, but we've never lost anything close to 195 in a particular year. So that number dramatically affects, obviously, everything in the budget. The other thing that kind of comes to mind is the services line item, which I know is not something we could be maybe precise at right now, but it is $1 million higher than it was last adopted budget, and nearly $1 million higher than it was in our last unaudited actual. So it would be interesting to understand why that one has increased so dramatically. And those are and then the fact that this is based on the May revise, I think it's promising because the new legislative session, as we know, has increased the statewide budget above the May revise. So I would be anticipating better numbers than the May revise. So that's all. Thank you.
Thank you, Brian. Can I get clarification if we're allowing people to speak multiple times? I've got Tara continuing to raise her hand.
No, we are not. We just passed that item on our bylaws. So no, thank you.
Thank you for the clarification.
Okay. So do we want to answer any of those minor questions? What's your thought, Tony? Or is that just digging deep into the weeds?
Probably do some clarifications.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. Did you want me to jump in?
Sure.
Okay.
Katrina, if you can clarify some of those points.
Jennifer, you asked about what percentage of our enrollment ADA is interdistrict transfers. I don't have that information handy. I don't know if Ann or Tony have it handy.
We don't know it as a percentage, but I know across the grades, the incoming interdistricts are around 400, I believe, Tony. We looked closely at that at second interim.
Yeah, I think.
And outgoing is about 40, I think, if I recall correctly. So definitely lopsided in our favor into what was Annalee High School.
Mm-hmm. And the last calculation that we had on inters coming in and students requesting going out, they were about the same as they have been every year. There hasn't been a significant swing as of the last time we looked at those numbers, which was about a week ago.
Okay. I know Debbie Ramirez asked about, she noticed the decrease in federal numbers between last year and this year. Primarily that decrease was federal COVID money. So we're not booking it until we're ready to use it, until we know when it's coming in. But that's what you see in the budget, and we'll revisit that between preliminary and budget for adoption to make sure that the budget being presented to the board for adoption has the most accurate and up-to-date information.
To be clear,
I think I answered Debbie's question.
Well, 1920 shows us spending, 2021 shows us spending ESSER 1. In 21-22, we're really not using the federal COVID money, we're using the state COVID money. Then we use ESSER 2.
Correct. So it's
3 and ESSER 3 and 23-24. So the multi-year will show federal going back up.
Yep.
Correct. And then on Brian, the last question that I think clarifying question we can respond to was Brian. On the AD for enrollment, I just want to say that we're using the enrollment received in the district office right now for next year was our basis. So the next, again, as numbers change, we'll look at updating that when students arrive in the fall, or I guess it's late summer, the way the school calendar works these days. And then you had a question about service line items from last year's adopted to this year's adopted, and I don't have that information available to readily answer or clarify that questions. So that comment. So I
can say at least part of the increase is increased costs in special education, because we have a significant increase in the charge from the County Office of Education for their program. And part of it is additional services from the COVID money to provide the mental health services and transportation and the other extra services to students. I think that accounts for most of the increase.
Right. And the way the Lcap supplemental is budgeted does primarily fall either in staffing or in the service line items as well. I would agree, Ann.
Yes. And moving forward, the services line item might get larger because our intention is to increase services to students in order to avoid having them being placed in out-of-school placements. So the money, the extended learning opportunities grant money and the supplemental fund money are completely being devoted to additional services to students. So you might also see that services line item get a little bit larger based on that.
And as those programs funding streams, like Ann just made mention, as we go from year to year, you'll see the fluctuation, as well as you may see fluctuation from the staffing that is funded by those those funding sources as well. So as we build out the multi-year, we'll be specifically tracking resource by resource, funding source by funding source, and make any adjustments as necessary. I hope we've answered the clarifying questions for you.
Thank you very much. I think that was very helpful. Okay. Yes, Angie, go ahead.
I just had a quick question, and you were talking about the COVID mental health services, and then I don't know if when you were talking about transportation, if that pertained to that or that was just the second.
When Tony talked about providing the shuttles and the extra routes between Annalee and El Molino.
Okay. Yeah.
It's that increase in transportation, because that is part of the services line.
Yeah, I just wanted to clarify, because they kind of almost sounded like the same. And then do you have a ballpark on how much the cost is for that added transportation?
Yeah, it's about $35,000, and that's what's included in those supplemental grant funds.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you, Angie. Questions, Lori, Julie? Yes, Julie, go ahead.
Okay, there we go. Is all special ed considered part of those service line items, or is it in a different category?
Well, a good part of special ed, our own employees provide those services. So we have teachers, we have paraprofessionals. So that part of special ed is our own. But when we have students with more intense needs that can't be served through our own programs, whether they go to a non-public school or they go to a class at SCO. And we also have, unfortunately, sometimes when we aren't able to fill a position and we end up having to contract with an agency, and that also falls into the services line. And then special education transportation is also part of services.
Okay, so Tony, you were saying that the services line items might go up if we don't send kids to those special classes. Wouldn't that then make that services line item section go down?
No, because what we're doing is we are expanding our response to interventions for students. We are expanding those services so that we do not have to send students out to outside services. We're going to provide a comprehensive response to intervention program within our school. And so to do that, we are increasing services to students so that we don't have to send them out to get them. So that services line item will likely go up because we are providing more services to our kids in our district versus having to send them out and pay someone else to take care of.
So the students who are already out will still be getting those services outside, but our plan or our hope and our work is to try to provide early services, early intervention, less expensively, and ultimately not have to send them out of the district, to keep them in their school with their peers in the least restrictive environment. That's the goal.
I understand that. I'm confused on the description of those services line items, because it seems like Anne was saying those are services that are contracted out. They're not both services that our own staff is providing.
They're both, depending on who the provider of the services.
Okay, so all of that is in that services item.
Correct.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
The staffing is the staffing. If you were to look at the special education budget, there's a staffing component and then there's services component. So, okay, so I think in the short term, if you think of it in the term of the next year or two, the service line item might increase in the overall budget, because using the supplemental and the other intervention kind of things, we're catching them. We're putting in place something to catch them before they're special ed. Mm-hmm. So the cost might go up in the short term with the intent that we're catching the kids before they need the more expensive services. Okay, so the ones that are already in there will probably still be in there, but it'll look like your service number will increase because with the Lcap and with the additional expanded learning opportunities money and stuff, there's more services being implemented at the local level. Right. So your budget will go up for now with the intent that in the long term, you're able to provide those services in-house. Correct. You know, so that it's going to be a mix, you know, and what Anne was just saying is in the budget, it's like a psychologist is a great example and a speech person. You budget for them as when you're trying to hire them as staff, but what happens is you can't find them. So what happens is your staff number goes down and your service number increases again. So there's all those little pieces in play, if that helps.
Okay, and the other question I had, because it went by kind of fast, and I know, I don't know the specifics, but I know Ed Code recommends certain amount of administrators per teaching staff. Is that correct?
Yes.
Yeah, and how I didn't catch the numbers. So how is our administration to teacher ratio?
Anne, I know you're working on that. Did you want to respond?
Yes, we meet the requirement, and we have for the last several years since I've looked at it. To be clear, the number that Katrina reported as classified management actually includes confidential employees, and confidential employees do not count as administrators for purposes of computing that ratio. But confidential and management is a very long title for a line, so we often shorten it, but it really does include both of those groups. And there's more confidential staff than there are classified managers. But we do meet the requirement. It's something the auditors ask for every year.
Okay, thank you, Julie. Lori, do you have any questions? Any further questions? Okay,
No, all of the questions that I had were answered.
Good. I had one question is, with the interdistrict transfers, we said we had 400 in and 40 out. How does that compare with last year?
It's very close to the same right now. We're about the same as we were last year. Very similar.
Okay. All right, good. Excellent, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
And also, I wanted to just add one piece, and you guys can tell me if I'm off base, but didn't I understand that we were it was recommended to us by, I believe, school services that we, or the state, someone recommended that we definitely budget for a greater loss of students coming in the future, and that may be addressing part of Brian's question, because the state asked us to consider, they asked everyone in the state to consider a 5% increase in the number of students that we might lose.
That was actually the County Office of Education, Dr. Harrington, at one of our, I think after perhaps first interim, suggested that that's what they are seeing around the county, and that's what they're recommending districts plan on because of the uncertainty about the effects of the pandemic. Among other things, you know, we've been in declining enrollment, the county's in declining enrollment, the whole state is in declining enrollment. And part of it is high cost of housing, people have lost jobs. Are people going to move out of the area over the summer? So that was their recommendation for a prudent number.
I actually have a friend who's a trustee down in Southern California, and they're in a fairly large school district, and it was also recommended to them to have a 5% decrease. And their school's about 5 times the size of ours. So you could imagine what a 5% decrease looks like there. And it about blew their socks off.
Well, the thing to always remember is that our biggest cost is staff. And after March 15th, we can't adjust our staff. So if we've staffed for a level of students that don't appear in August, then we're overstaffed. And while, yes, we're going to be funded based on last year's ADA, the more, if we're overstaffed, then that's money we don't have to help us the following year. So it's important to be cautious for sure when we hire staff.
Okay, that was my only question, just to see how we were compared to last year. I thought it was fairly close, so I just thought I'd ask. Okay, any further comments, questions from the board on this item? It is just a public hearing, so with that, we're going to move to the consideration of the approval of a resolution to establish temporary interfund transfers of special restricted fund money.
So this is a relatively routine item that we do every year. The
motion. Sorry, Anne.
Yes, sorry.
Yeah, we do. You're right. Thank you, Anne. Thank you, Angie, very much. Can I get a motion on consideration of approval of this resolution?
So moved.
Thank you, Angie. Second?
I'll second it.
Thank you, Lori.
Great.
Go ahead, Anne. Thank you.
So our funds are all required to have positive cash at the end of June. There are also times during the year where we do not have positive cash in all of our funds, particularly the cafeteria fund, where the money comes from the state and federal government, and sometimes there's a long lag. And also sometimes the consortium, Fund 6, may run negative cash. So we want to have the ability to borrow from our own funds so that we can manage our cash flow and meet our legal requirements. Last year, we did have to borrow, have borrowings between our funds in June, and we settled them up in July. This year, we may not have to borrow because we are getting some of the federal COVID money early. But it's better to be prepared than to have a moment where we say, oops, we blew it. So that's the point of this.
Thank you, Anne, very much. Okay, with that, I'm going to ask if there's anyone from the public that wishes to speak with regards to this resolution, temporary interfund transfers of special or restricted fund money. I see that Tara's hand's raised, but it's been raised for quite some time, so I don't know if she actually wants to speak to this item or not.
I'm going to lower her hand, and then if she wants, she can raise it again. Perfect.
Okay.
She wants to speak. Okay, let me get it set up. Come on. All right, Tara, you have the floor.
Okay, I say I'm sorry every time, but then my friends say, why do you say sorry? So I'm sorry, not sorry, I guess, that I'm speaking because I have two kids going into school next year into El Molino that I am fighting teeth and nail for to keep them at that school, and a son in 6th grade ready to go there. So my two are going out, and I did already do an inter-district out of this. They're not going to Annalee. They are going to Windsor. So we already did the paperwork. I'm still fighting tooth and nail in the hopes of keeping El Molino for them because that is where they want to go. They will not go to Annalee because they do not fit in that culture. You still will not hear us.
Tara?
Yes.
I need to tell you and ask you to please be on the topic of the temporary interfund transfers of special or restricted fund money. And if you cannot stay on that topic, then we will have to mute you.
Okay, so that funds for that goes towards that. So I'm trying to find that line there, Jeannie. I'm appreciating and hearing you, but I hope you hear us too. So that funding, you have no idea how many kids you're losing. So it does not behoove you. Thank you.
Okay, any comments from the board with regards to this resolution number 25 to establish a temporary interfund? Yes, Angie.
I'm sorry, just real quick, Anne. I'm guessing this is something that's standard. I haven't been here quite a year yet, so a lot of these things as they come up, I'm just learning as we go.
Yes.
It says in there that they have to get paid back by the end of, I think, the fiscal year. Is that like there's no, they only get paid back, it's okay, we're not gambling or anything?
No, we're not gambling. So as long as if you borrow less than 120 days before the end of the year, you have the following fiscal year to pay it back. Mm-hmm. If it's earlier than that, then it has to be repaid within the fiscal year. So if we needed to loan money to the cafeteria fund in December, it would have to be repaid before June 30th. If we loan them money in June, then it can be repaid the following year. We typically try to repay in July. Sometimes if we're having a lot to do closing, it might slip to August. But typically it's because we're waiting for money from the state and federal government. And we can't control when they pay us. They pay us when they feel like it. So
okay. Thank you.
Good question, Angie. Any other comments from the board? Okay, so we're going to go ahead and do a recall. Oh, God. We're going to do a roll call vote. Guess I'm getting tired. Lori Fadave.
Aye.
Angie Lewis.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Julie Aiello.
Aye.
Jeannie Fernandez, aye. Okay. I'm going to move on to consideration of approval of monthly budget update for 2021. Can I get a motion, please?
Also move.
So moved.
Thank you, Lori. I'll give Julie the second. No problem. Okay. Ann, go right ahead.
All right. Well, this is your monthly item. I did have to change the format this time. I was fighting with our online tool to try to get the table to be in the document and still be lined up neatly, and it just wouldn't do it. And I finally said, you know, there are more important things for you to do than fight with this software. So instead, the summary is attached as a document along with the 2 reports from the financial system. And I hope that is not a problem for anyone. But there were a lot of budget adjustments during May because, of course, we were getting ready for third interim and then to have the baseline for the adopted budget. That's why there are many, many funds. And this is the last summary you will receive until the August meeting, because June, of course, the month of June stays open while we're closing the books. So in August, you will see the June budget revisions as well as the July budget revisions. Because as we get new information, we keep updating our budget.
Thank you very much. Okay, are there any comments from the public on our approval of our monthly budget updates? So please raise your hand. Okay, seeing or hearing none. Any comments from the board? This is just routine. Yes, Lori?
Just quick one, not on the numbers in the budget, but Anne, it's very, very, I appreciate very much the fact that you had problems with software and you just decided to let it go. I'm glad I'm not the only one that ever happens to.
I'm muted. I'll do a roll call vote now. Lori Fadave.
Aye.
Angie Lewis.
Aye.
Julie Aiello.
Aye.
Jeannie Fernandez. Aye. Okay, thank you, Anne, very much, and Katrina, for your guys' help on all of those budget items. Next, we will move on to consideration of our approval of our monthly personnel report. Can I get a motion, please?
I move that we approve the monthly personnel report.
Thank you, Angie. A second, please.
I'll second it.
Thank you, Lori. Okay, Mia.
Hey, this is our monthly personnel report. I have a few additions. We have hired back Jake Frisky, who will be an academic support teacher for us again next year. We are also hiring back Sharon Hallengren. She will be a Secretary 1. She will be the support to the school counselors for next school year. And we did receive a letter of resignation from Claudia Camacho Gonzalez. She's one of our school counselors, and she is resigning at the end of the school year, or at the end of the month. Yeah, we're sorry to lose her.
Okay. Are there any comments from the public on the monthly personnel report? Looks like we have Mary Lou.
Mary Lou, I'm going to go ahead and start things in a second, but you have the floor.
Hello, good evening. This is Marilu Saldaña. Yes, I do. I wanted to say I'm I am. I'm very sad to hear about Claudia Camacho. She's just a wonderful person, a wonderful counselor, and I'm sorry to lose her. But I also wanted to say I'm very happy also for Sharon, just a wonderful person as well. And so I just wanted to share that, you know, these are two wonderful people, and I think both will just do wonderful in their new future positions.
Thank you, Marilu.
Thank you, Mary Lou. That was nice. Okay, any comments from the board on the personnel report? Okay, I will do roll call vote. Lori Fadave.
Aye.
Angie Lewis.
Aye.
Julie Aiello.
Aye.
Jeannie Fernandez, aye. Next, we'll move on to consideration of approval of classified management and certificated administrative contracts, for 2021-2022. Can I get a motion, please?
Also move.
Thank you, Lori.
I'll second.
Thank you, Angie. Go ahead, Mia.
Okay, so every year the school board approves the employment contracts for the certificated administrators and the classified management. All of the contracts were included in the board packet, and they are for Allie Green, the Laguna principal, Erin Elliott, West County vice principal, Danny Breeze, West County vice principal, Laura Schmidt, the district director of special education, Rose Velasquez, Special Education Consortium Director, Ginny Bruneman, Director of Facilities and Bond Construction Management, and my contract as the Director of Human Resources. All of these contracts are for 1 year, and once the board approves these contracts, they will be posted on our district website. Jeannie, you're muted again.
Sorry, thanks. Is there any comment from the public on our classified management and certificated administrator contracts? Okay, seeing none, is there any comments or discussion with regards to these contracts with the board? Okay, seeing none, I will go ahead and do recall. I've got it stuck in my brain. Oh my God. Oh Lord.
You know,
so apropos, right? Lord. Roll call vote. I need to tape it across my screen. Roll call vote. Lori Fadave.
Aye.
Angie Lewis.
Aye.
Julie Aiello.
Aye.
Jeannie Fernandez, aye. Oh my God. Okay, next we will move on to consideration of approval of a new salary schedule for the CBO, something that we discussed last meeting. Can I get a motion, please?
I so moved.
I'm going to take Julie's motion. A second, please. I'll give a second to Lori. Thanks so much. Okay, go ahead, Mia.
Okay, so based on the direction of the board at the last board meeting, we did increase the CBO salary by 3%, and I did attach the salary schedule for your review. It was part of the board agenda packet, and I bolded it so it was easier to read.
Thank you very much. Is there any comments from the public on the salary schedule for the CBO? Seeing none. Any comments from the public from the board on the CBO contract? Okay, we will do a roll call vote. Lori Fadave.
Aye.
Angie Lewis.
Aye.
Julie Aiello.
Aye.
Jeannie Fernandez, aye. Thank you. Next, oh, we already did number 4. That's it. Wow, okay. So we have a number of future agenda items that will be on our June 23rd meeting. If anybody has anything else they want to add, reach out to Tony or to Kelly or myself so we can discuss getting it on the agenda. And I think for the good of the cause, that's our meeting. Anybody else have anything else they need to add? Good night, everybody. We'll see you on the 23rd.